Thomas was chuffing happily down his branch line with his two coaches, Annie and Clarabelle. He was nearing the point close to the signal box at dry-off, but much to Thomas's surprise, the points didn't change, and Thomas's driver quickly reduced steam and applied the brakes just in time. Thomas hit the buffers, and his passengers jumped in surprise. Luckily, Thomas wasn't hurt, and nor were his passengers.
"Bust my buffers!"
exclaimed Thomas.
"Whatever will Sir Topham Hatt say?"
Once Thomas returned to Knapford, he found out soon enough.
"Well, Thomas,"
said Sir Topham Hatt,
"I've heard of the incident that occurred on your branch line, and I've attended to the matter by making contact with the railway inspector. I've also arranged for Daisy, the diesel rail car, to take him down the branch line and stop at each signal box and station to make sure that it's in good and safe condition."
"Thank you, sir,"
smiled Thomas as he puffed away towards Titmouth Sheds. The next day, Daisy was waiting impatiently at the junction for Henry to arrive with the inspector. "Where's that Henry?" she asked. "At this point, I'll be letting the whole branch line down." Moments later, Henry arrived. "Sorry I'm late, Daisy. The ship that the inspector was traveling in was delayed." "No excuses next time, Henry. You were just having your firebox cleaned out due to that special coal of yours," Daisy said crossly. "But Daisy, that was fixed years ago." "Pah!" scoffed Daisy, and she went on her way with her important passenger to make up for lost time. Daisy had to stop at each signal box and station to let the inspector check and see if they were in good and safe condition. The inspector so far had inspected Dry-Off Station along with two signal boxes. Daisy was just about to leave the second signal box on her way to Maithwaite, but as she passed the point, oil had leaked from her tanks and had gotten onto the rails. This caused the rails to be slippery, which could lead to trouble. An hour later, Daisy was just about to leave Farquhar, and was pleased to hear that the branch line had passed the inspection. "Thomas and the other engines will be grateful that the inspector rode in such a modern diesel rail car like me," she said to herself, and with that, Daisy departed from Farquhar, ready for the journey home. As Daisy neared the point where she had an oil leak, she tried to slow down for the signalman, but she couldn't. She was slipping on the oily rails, and before she knew it, she hit the buffers very hard. Luckily, the inspector wasn't hurt, but as he stepped out of Daisy, she was beginning to look very worried. "Now the branch line will have to close," she thought. "As I thought," said the inspector. "What's the matter?" asked Daisy's driver. "Nothing wrong," said the inspector, "but you'd best get Daisy to the works. She must be leaking oil." "So there's nothing wrong with the line?" asked Daisy with a worried expression on her face. "Certainly not," said the inspector. "Now, let's head on back to the junction." A few days later, Daisy had returned from the diesel works. She was no longer leaking oil, and was glad to see the branch line back to running on a regular basis. Thomas was back to pulling Annie and Clarabelle, and Percy and Toby were back to doing odd jobs. Everyone was very happy indeed, but Daisy was the happiest of all. "It's good to be back to work."
"Yes, indeed. But next time, make sure you don't slip on oily rails."
Daisy was not amused, but she was still glad to be back on the branch line, and was always most careful about oil leaks.